Parker. Welcome to the Nerd Tea.
Thank you so much for having me. We've been going through it to get here,
Yeah,
but it is
I was gonna say this is fully pretending as though we haven't been speaking for like an hour trying to fix
truly,
like technical
trying
problems.
to get it to work.
Like it's fine, we had coffee in between. It's
Yep,
all good.
we are on it now. We are no more problems.
No, we're good. We have our tech issues resolved. We have wardrobe issues resolved. Like we're good
Everything.
to go. We're
We're
good to go.
good.
Okay, so let's get fully ready. I just want to start off by just doing like a quick introduction, and then I'll get into asking you loads of questions. For anyone who might not have seen the show before, it's gonna be basically broken down into three sections. We have the talking to you about your books, we have talking to you about writing and your publishing, because you also own a publishing house, and then after that it's more miscellaneous, sort of fun, bookish world questions type of
Okay.
vibe. So let's start off with you just quickly introducing yourself for anyone who might not know who you are.
Okay, perfect. Hi, I am Hannah Parker. I am the author of the Severed Realms trilogy. The first two books are out now, Autumn's Tithe and Autumn's Traders. Super excited. They are a young adult fantasy, enemies to lovers, fae, all kinds of good stuff. And I also own the publishing house Counterpoise Press. So I published my books through Counterpoise, and now I am publishing other people's books. Super excited about it. It's just a small traditional house. Love it. Love publishing. Love books. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here.
That is honestly extremely cool. I can't wait to get more into the publishing stuff, because I think that is extremely interesting and super indicative of where a lot of the industry is sort of heading towards now, honestly.
Mhm.
But we'll get more into that in a minute. First, I want to start off with your books. You said you have two out right now.
Mhm.
One of them is the main one is called Autumn's Tithe. You have it. I
I don't
have
have
the
the second one
special,
with me, but I have
yeah,
her.
the special edition one right
Yay!
here. And then I have the second one is more dipped in gold. The second,
Oh,
like,
love.
special edition one, which is really, they go really cute
Yeah, they are
together.
so good. The cover artist truly did the most.
Honestly, and then what I really like about like any special editions, honestly, is the like I always like
Yes.
the little edges. I'm a
Mhm.
huge fan. If I could, I would have all of my books with some sort of dyed edges.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Spoiled now that I have the fancy ones.
yeah, well, the regular cover, we were talking about this earlier, is also like really beautiful.
Mhm.
I was kind of like, oh, I kind of like that one too, but I wanted to make sure that the
They
collection,
gotta
yeah,
match.
because if it doesn't match, it looks ugly in the bookshelf, and I just
Mhm.
like I can't have that, so
Yeah,
like I can't do
I
it.
get it.
But first, let's just, what is Autumn Tithe about? I want to know what the series is about.
Yeah, so it's about a girl named Larkin, and she journeys into the fairy realm to rescue her best friend and gets tied in a life debt with her best friend's murderer. So it basically means that, like, her and this fairy prince, she saved his life, and now he has to save her life in return. And until that time, they are magically bound. So, like, if one gets hurt, so does the other. If one dies, so does the other. So it's kind of about them trying to break their bond. It's got like light enemies to lovers vibes. And yeah, it's gonna be a trilogy. So second one's out, and it's just like continuation of the first story, but with some more points of view. So
Yeah.
super excited about it. Love it.
The whole attached like life debt situation, it's like the ultimate forced proximity.
Yes. Yeah, it's like extreme forced proximity, and
Like
I love that
extreme.
trope. I just love
I
like
Yeah,
magical wands. It's like my favorite,
yes.
one of my favorite tropes ever.
Yeah, I think you can get away with like having a lot of fun with the forced proximity when it comes to fantasy, which is
Yes.
it's just I in my humble opinion, I feel like it can get a lot more fun in fantasy than it can
Yes.
with like regular life, because it's just like I don't know. It's just like, oh, it's like not real, so it makes it really
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Exactly.
I want to know, what was your inspiration with these books? Like, were these like inspired by any other author? Is this inspired by just like your imagination? What was inspiring about it?
Yeah, I was super inspired by like Sarah J. Maas, Holly Black, all of those like big Fae authors. I love those series. I started a book about Fae reading it when I was in middle school. It's called the Iron Fae series. So good. It's like very 2010s
Was
YA
it
fantasy.
was it like based on like high school? Like she went to high school? Is that
I think so.
am I
She's like
thinking
in
of
high
the wrong
school.
one?
She like is in high school, but then it's kind of like portal fantasy. So she like goes into the fairy realm, but it's like in modern times.
Yes, I've read the
Yes,
book. Yes, yes, yes,
I
I've read them.
love them.
Mhm.
Like nobody's read them, and I love them so much. And I read them like back in middle school, and that's kind of what started my love of like Faye. And then Sarah J. Maas came out, Akatar, all that stuff. Loved it, and I really just wanted Faye, but kind of with like a spin. I wanted a really curvy main character, and she's like she's human and she doesn't like her strength isn't from fighting
Mhm.
or magic or anything like that. It's more just like she is genuinely like a really good person. She wants to help. She like helps. I'm like struggling with words, but she like helps not by
Yeah,
fighting, but like
yeah.
with her brain and like
Mhm.
stuff that she can do just to like help by herself, not with any like magic or fighting or anything. And I really like that because I thought like, oh, if I went to like this magical fairy realm, I would not be able to do anything. I would be like completely worthless.
Completely. I think the
Nothing.
same thing.
I got
I'm
nothing
always
to bring to
like
the table.
literally, I'm always like, suck me into like a fantasy world. But then on the other hand, I'm like,
Yeah.
I feel I that I would die rather quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like just
Truly, I
so
would be a liability. And that's like,
yeah.
yeah. And so that's why I like kind of wanted to do that with like fantasy with kind of a main character that I could really see myself in.
Mhm.
Which I feel like a lot of authors kind of start there with their journey. They're inspired by other things like certain tropes and then, go with the exact super niche tropes that they love. And that's what
Yeah.
makes it unique.
Yeah, that's what makes it a fun story.
Mhm, mhm.
I actually, so you told us a little bit about your main character, but I also
Mhm.
want to talk about your other characters because you do this fun thing where you sort of compare them to like some beloved characters. I read it
Mhm.
and I have like the list here. So
Oh,
you,
okay, perfect.
yeah, hold
I was
on.
like, I don't know if I
I,
remember. But
I may or may not have stalked your social media. Don't worry about it.
okay, great. Love
So
that.
you said okay. So you compared your FMC with Bilbo. You
Yes.
did MMC to Aragon and Peter from Narnia.
Mhm.
Um, correct me in my pronunciation. Day,
Yeah, Dahi, Dahi,
Dahi,
whatever. I'm not
Dahi.
picky with the pronunciation at all.
I well, it like whatever comes to your
Yeah,
head. It's like
whatever.
so hard to get it out. Like,
With
fix
fantasy, it's like, you'll say it like so kind of clearly in your mind, and then you'll like go to
yeah,
say it out loud, and it's like, oh, actually, it made perfect sense in my brain now. Can't say it. So, or I'm just like, I
fantasy.
already know. That's
Yeah,
how I've been saying it in my head, so it's not gonna change now.
fantasy names are great in your head or like written. They're so weird
Mhm.
when you like actually say them out loud. It
Yes.
just makes no sense. But Dahi.
Yes.
You've also compared to Peter a little bit, but also Harry from Spanish Princess,
Yes.
Saja to Peta and Sam, and then Madden to Styles to
Mhm.
for so I kind of want to know more about like that comparison, that inspiration to compare them to those very
Yeah.
like known characters.
Yeah, for sure. I think I like always loved Bilbo as a character from The Hobbit. He's like coming from this very soft lifestyle, but he like kind of secretly wants an adventure. And then he kind of joins this group on a quest, and people really underestimate him. And then I know that he has the ring, so there's like some magic
Yeah,
involved, but really a lot of what he's bringing to the table is just like his own perspective and kind of his own brain and like stuff that he's experienced from this like soft life that like, you know, these really strong warriors like wouldn't have maybe a good perspective on, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I really, that was kind of the vibe that I felt from Larkin, is like she's coming from the human world. She has no experience fighting. She has no experience really with magic, but she does want an adventure. She does want to like help in her own way, and does become like a really invaluable member of the group. So that's kind of the vibe I got with her. And then for the little boys in her fairy group, I this is like one of the super niche, like not even trope, maybe just a super niche vibe, but I've always loved Edmund and Peter from Narnia. Like
Yeah.
that relationship, I
Hmm.
don't know what it is, and I don't see it very often, but for some reason, I just really, really like it. It's like the brothers, where they're like kind of rivals, and the younger one's jealous because the older one is like really perfect, and then the younger one like makes bad decisions
Yeah.
and low key kind of evil, and then they like reconcile. Like, I don't know. If people have recommendations for books with that, please. I'm always looking for them.
Yeah, no, you're right. I was just like, oh, and I was like, wait, no, hold on, I don't
Yeah.
actually have
And
any.
like literally have been obsessed with Narnia since I was like a child,
Yeah.
and still love that trope. Like I will die for it. I guess like, have you seen House of the Dragon at all?
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
like
I'm not caught
Damon.
up in the last episode.
Okay, I won't spoil it.
Yeah.
But like Damon and Viserys in the first season, they like
Oh, yes,
kind
like,
of have
yeah,
that. Viserys is like kind of not perfect, but you know, like Damon, like
yeah,
wanting the throne, like having that kind of like rivalry. I love it. I love it. So that's kind of like the vibe that Finder and Dahi have. It's kind of like a little bit of a rivalry.
it's like
But
this
they like,
weird, intense love for each other,
yes,
and then also intense, like,
yes,
clash.
yes,
Yeah,
they would like do things. They kind of both want the same thing. Like they
yeah,
both want their court, their kingdom to be like safe and in a certain way, but like they both have different ways of going about that. And then that really makes them clash. And I just love that kind of family conflict in stories. Like I just love it. So if
yeah,
anyone has any recommendations for
yeah,
vibes
like,
like that,
actually,
love
please
it.
do. Like, it's just like, no, I don't see it,
Yeah.
like,
I know, that's like, I'm like, I don't know why I just I love it, and I don't see it very often. So, but I never like really encounter someone else that's like, yeah, like Peter and Edmund vibes, and I'm like, I really like it. I don't know how to explain it.
yeah, no, it's a good one. It's a good dynamic.
Yes, yeah, conflict.
Mhm.
And then Madden and Saja are the other ones in this little group, and Madden is, I didn't really have someone to compare him to. People have compared him to the Styles Stilinski guy from Teen Wolf. I've never
Yeah.
seen Teen Wolf, jail for me probably,
No,
but
no.
like that's kind of the vibe he gives. I feel like it's like the comedic relief character with like a brutal traumatizing backstory. Like,
Yeah.
again, love that like character archetype. Tons of those types of characters, but again, I really like when they're like very funny, trying to lighten the mood, trying to help everyone else feel better, when
Mhm.
like internally they're like
Suffering.
so traumatized. This is
Yeah.
like
The poor
harsh
man,
but
he's
well.
going through it, yeah.
Yes, so that's like kind of his main vibe. And then Saja is like a warrior. He's very obsessed with protecting his prince, but he has like a chronic breathing illness. So he is like always kind of down for the count, and then he feels like he's not contributing or like able to contribute to the group. He does, but he just like
Yeah.
thinks that he can't, and then that like causes a lot of tension with him and the group. too, because he feels like he's like sometimes when he's hurt, like not a liability, but kind of like he really wants to help, he wants to be fighting, and then his illness kind of like just has random attacks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Again, I don't wait, who did I compare him to?
You
Peta,
did. Hold
I
on,
think.
hold on. Yes,
Yes.
PETA and Sam also.
Sam, yes.
Yes.
So he's just like diehard loyal, very sweet, and kind of like doesn't know what he brings to the table, even though it's a lot. So
Yeah.
yeah, those are like deeply specific things about them that
Yeah.
hopefully people get a good vibe from
I mean,
that.
honestly, that is like that. I saw the explanation and I was like, this is such a great way for people to be like, okay, because if you like that vibe, then it's like, okay, I will read the book because I enjoy the vibes of like these kind of
Yeah.
popular, you
Okay,
know.
I'm so glad you said that because I like redid some of my story highlights and I
Uh-huh.
deleted those because I was like, "Oh,
What?
I don't feel like people like those." But hearing you say that, like, okay, I'm gonna bring them back.
Yeah,
I'll do a little
the
comparison
little thing
story
again.
because I like that too. I like to
Yeah.
know like who they're similar to, especially when it's like not quite as known. Like I love Sarah J. Maas, all of those
Mhm.
like big authors. I like truly love their books, but it's hard when it's like, oh, it's just like the main character is like just like Reese or whatever. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
like I like that, but like I also like comparing him to like maybe someone like kind of lesser known or more unique, so I get a more sense
Yeah.
of the vibe, like more than like, just a mainstream character, I guess. I find like the little little characters that people probably don't think of very much.
Yeah, well, and also just like sometimes even the like if you do compare it to the classics though, like those are like so established
Yeah.
that people are like, okay, cool. Like I like that vibe. I want to
Yeah.
bring that vibe and back to like to Edmund and Peter like people love love those characters.
Yeah.
So it's always good to like have I like it. I like the idea of like telling people exactly kind of like this is the vibe that
Mhm.
you're gonna get because people have so many things to read that it's like nice to be like okay yeah I think based on that I can vibe with that you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
Okay, so I also you touched on it a little bit earlier but I want to bring it back. You touched on the fact that your main character is curvy,
Mhm.
um and I kind of love the idea that for the male characters this was not even like an issue because and your main character does at some point kind of like learns to realize like what strength her body has and what strength her mind has and everything, but I also love the fact that it was never a question of like whether she is beautiful, you know what I mean? And I like that is something that you don't see a lot, especially in fantasy. Just like the idea of like a curvy person being the love interest or being
Mhm.
somebody who, you know, so I just kind of want to talk to you about like the idea of having that character be your protagonist.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so many people understand the struggle of like being insecure no matter what your body
Yeah.
looks like, or what you look like, but I feel like I really struggled with like body image and self confidence, especially in high school, which is the age of my protagonist. And I did really want a fantasy book where, it's kind of a hard topic because people read it and they either love it or hate it. And they either like really like that she, is very insecure and is learning about self confidence and like learning to love herself, even though her body never changes. Like
Yeah.
throughout the whole thing, it doesn't change. But she realizes, like, oh, it brought me on this quest. It does stuff. And like, self love is a very ongoing thing. But she really kind of comes into her own and gains a lot of self confidence and self love through the story. And some people don't don't like that she is like so conscious of her body and so self conscious because they really took it as like fat phobic,
Yeah.
which which I everyone's gonna read it and like think their own thing, and everyone is like totally entitled to their opinion. Um, but I this was coming from something that was so deeply personal to me, was like I have really struggled with self-confidence, especially when I was my main character's age. So I the story to me was just like very personal,
Mhm.
and I wanted to see more of characters like her in fantasy, that just had a different body type. Like I have nothing against the like, super slender warrior women who are like super toned from fighting and stuff like that. Like I totally think that we need plenty of that in fantasy. But like I also wanted kind of more of a softer woman. And she is a badass in other ways, which is kind of I've kind of touched on. But like she really is a badass, but she's just doing
Mhm.
stuff in a different way and kind of going on this own her own like journey. And she is beautiful, and like the fae really see that in
Yeah.
her, like her looks, yes, but also like deeper than that. And that's like never a question for them, it's more a
Yeah.
question for her.
Yeah.
And she's like learning that, and she doesn't learn that because they tell her that. Like they are very open and like very like
Yeah.
nice to her, but she doesn't like learn that she's beautiful and has worth because like a bunch of male fae told her that. She has to go on kind of her own self-confidence journey
Mhm.
on her own, and I think that that's really important for young girls to see. And if some people again like they think it's too critical of like her like thinking kind of
Mhm.
bad thoughts about herself, like that's totally fine. But not everybody starts out with like a really body positive or body neutral
Yeah.
stance. Sometimes it's not, and you are thinking kind of negatively about yourself, and you can really realize something through a journey,
Yeah.
whether it's through a book or through your own life or whatever. So yeah, that is, I love that question.
No, I absolutely, I can see the criticism, but I did enjoy the fact that your character very specifically mentions her body when she is thinking positively about herself later on.
Yeah.
Like I do enjoy the fact that she herself was like, "Wait a minute."
Yeah,
Like
yeah. It's like
my
questioning.
body, yeah, like my body did
Yeah.
go through this. It's not, I think she, because she from the beginning she was comparing herself to her best friend, who she
Mhm.
herself described as she was beautiful and I was not really,
Yeah.
like, and it is nice that just through her own journey,
Mhm.
despite having a love interest that like, and they're all very nice to her and stuff like that, it is her own
Yeah.
conclusion that she is starting to realize, like, like maybe I am
Yeah.
pretty,
Yeah.
like, like, yeah. So it is, I did enjoy the fact that it was like a very, and I think it is important for that age specifically, because a lot of people think that like if they don't always think positive about themselves, or there's something wrong, and it's okay
Yeah.
to sometimes feel like you're not pretty, but
Right.
it's also good to just like eventually come to the conclusion that like not everyone has to have the same body type. It's okay, you know?
Oh no, wait, it froze for a second. Oh wait, it's back. Okay, it froze
Yeah,
for a
it
second on
froze
my
for a
end.
hot
Okay.
second. I was like, ah! No.
No, I totally agree. And I think that like it was really important for me to have like I wish I could have read something like this. And that's part of why a lot of authors write, is because this is
Yeah,
the book that you needed,
right. What you
you know, in your
yeah,
past. But I really wanted to see a character with a different like body type. Also like get the really hot
yeah,
male love interest. I really wanted to see that because I, again, not against the like beautiful warrior women like archetype at all. Like I love that. But I also wanted to see other types of female characters kind of get that and have romance and stuff like that, because that's just as important. So yeah, I that like theme was very personal to me. I know it's very personal to so many people, and obviously not going to work for everyone. That's okay, but I really hope that it like speaks to the people that it was meant to speak to, that vibe with
Yeah.
it.
Yes, I think it was good. I was really like pleasantly surprised that there was something that it was, because because it was something that was like kind of mentioned, but it's just an insecurity, and it's one of several insecurities that she
Right.
needs to like work through. And I kind
Yeah.
of I enjoy the fact that she was her age having insecurities, of her
Mhm.
age, like just like kind of very much matched um that that journey that a teenager should sort of
Right.
like be going through anyway.
Yeah.
You know? Plus a hot face, so that
Yeah.
also that doesn't hurt the issue.
It doesn't hurt.
Okay, so you also mentioned, so that was one of the themes that you had. I actually also want to talk about several themes that I saw between book 1 and 2 as well.
Yeah.
Um and so let's get into it. So, you have a quote that I loved, that you said immortality breeds cruelty.
Mhm.
And there's that whole theme about what really is humanity. For example, your FMC at some point says like, "Oh, she makes an off comment about like, I would not want to be immortal," And so I just want to know kind of that theme of like if immortality and humanity, if you could talk about it a little more.
Yeah. No, I love that because or that you brought it up, because I just love that theme too, of just like, especially like thinking about how humans would interact with kind of another like being that has so much more life and experience than they do, because Larkin is like 17, freshly 18, or she's 17 in the first one,
Mhm.
and she's around these fae that are like 150, 200 years old and have lived so much life since she even existed, and things were in play before she was even born and stuff like that. And one of her things is she like is deeply like alarmed when she sees like all of this like violence and cruelty, and the fae who have become kind of cold
Mhm.
after so much life. And but she also can understand that because they've seen so much pain in that amount of
Yeah.
time. And she experiences the good and the bad. She sees her fae companions who have tried to do a lot of good in their years, and then they come across some fae who have just become bored with how much life
Immortality.
they've
Yeah.
lived. Yeah. And seeing like who's ruling over them, like how the basically the king beast, like king in the story, is like thousands of years old, and he's like so old that he's basically like, what's the word I'm looking for, like in hibernation almost, and then he comes
Yeah.
out and like kind of kills people to get emotions and feel something again. And she like comes into this world that she has no experience with, and just really sees that. And she does make a comment like, I would not want that, I'm good clocking out at 80, because I can't, I don't want to experience, they've experienced really good times, but also really bad times. And ooh, it's like getting deep. But her companions even say, like, they're kind of amazed at her amazement at experiencing all these things for the first time. So she's like experiencing, monstrous creatures, but also like really beautiful magical creatures, and their powers, and just a magical realm. And she's like completely amazed, and deeply touched by like some of the like really cool things that she sees, and they really like seeing that in
Yeah.
her. Like they really like seeing, because they are so used to
Used
it.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah, that they don't like think that it's not new to them. It's not cool. It's not like amazing to them, and she really appreciates that, and they just think that that's like really cool that she is experiencing these things for the first time. So I just think that it's it, I don't even know how to say it, like humanity mixing, because the Fae are very human like,
Yeah.
but I kind of imagine them as people who have just like lived a really long time and know that they will live. They can be killed, but they will, if they're not killed, they will just live forever.
Yeah.
So I loved thinking about that on kind of like what a very human like creature would become if they just lived for a really long
Forever.
time. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that was
And
deep.
well, I found it back to deep. I found it so interesting that your big baddie is what he is chasing the most is human happiness.
Yeah,
You know, like so like to the point that he's lived so long that he needs help almost like
yeah,
finding happiness because
yeah,
he doesn't, I guess he's like sort of forgotten
yeah,
how to, you
absolutely.
know?
Yeah,
So I think like that also kind of like that question again is what is humanity and can you feel happiness if there's nothing to lose almost, you know?
right.
So I
Yeah,
actually was like, "Oh, this is like yeah, this is deep."
yeah.
Yeah.
And so many of them, actually like all of the Fae had experienced some sort of happiness and still had some of it, and like we're still
Yeah.
experiencing it, but had also lost a lot, a
Yeah.
tremendous amount. So I really liked thinking about that too, because like you think about when like you're a little kid and kind of hopefully
Yeah.
nothing is wrong in the world, and then you get older and stuff happens, and then think about that happening on the span of like
Yeah.
hundreds of years. It's a lot
Yeah.
to to think about and deal with for sure.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it can yes. Absolutely agree with that. It's a lot. It's and again, it's because I think there's no, and again, unless you get killed, there's no like limit. Like, oh, I can get to that at some point. I can do that whenever I want. I can, there's no like, no, this I need to live now
Yeah,
because there's not a lot of it left,
right,
which
right.
actually just
Yeah, I know. It's like thinking about some things.
like actually like let's not.
I also like I like thinking about that. I like the type of fantasy books where magic comes at kind of a big price,
Yeah,
And there's a lot of fantasy books that I like where it's like, they're using extreme types of magic with kind of like no repercussions. And I like those stories too, but like I also like seeing kind of the downside of magic. And I feel like these beings who get to use it also kind of pay the price of living forever. Like you think
yeah,
that oh, using magic and living forever, that sounds great on the surface, but then there's other things that you would have to consider,
yeah.
doing that for that long, if that makes sense.
No, yes, definitely. And it kind of leads me to a little bit of my next theme, which is that, like you said, all of your characters have gone through good stuff and have gone through bad stuff. And you have a little bit of the Peter Edmund dynamic where it's like they both want good things, but like
Mhm.
kind of a different way of doing things. So I really enjoyed that your characters all had, depending on who was viewing them, it was like, oh, they're doing the very best, they're amazing, they're great. And then to somebody else, they might be like, no, like they are actually horrible. They
Yeah.
don't, they're not. So I really enjoy that vibe, and I especially see it because you have the four courts, and you have things like the autumn court, which is more representative of like death,
Mhm.
and the powers are kind of more death like,
Mhm.
and yet the character that represents it is very kind or is trying to be very kind. And then you have somebody who is from a court that is lively and represents birth and everything, but they can be a little bit more cruel. So I like the fact that throughout the story with different characters, you sort of have that dynamic of like not necessarily good, not necessarily bad with the Fae.
Yeah. Yeah, and I really like just having things not quite be what they seem, like especially like you said, like what one character does, might seem really great, but even to like their own people, this is like getting so vague to avoid spoilers,
I
but
know,
like
I'm like,
like a certain character's decisions to their friends
yeah,
is a great decision. But
yeah,
like to their people or to another court or something like that might, be seen even as the villain. And I think that
yeah,
that's just like really fun to play around with, especially kind of like with more like political. It's not like super political, but like there's a little bit of political intrigue sprinkled in there. But it's fun to play around with, like, you know, especially to the group of friends, like someone who does something. I'm trying to like be
I
so
know, I know, I
vague.
know exactly what you're trying to say and do.
like when, like one character's bad actions to
Yes,
another are good, and that's just kind of
yeah.
like
The
re-
whole like somebody's hero is another person's
yes,
villain or vice
yeah,
versa. Like,
yeah.
yes. Mhm.
But I like, especially when I was able to kind of dive into multiple points of view in the second one, it was really
Mhm.
fun to show like why they were thinking or doing the things that they were doing.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to kind of like, I've had so many readers, even when they've like seen the perspective, like in the second one, there's the perspective of a new human character who's like very tied up in the religion of the
Mhm.
humans, very brainwashed, and she leaves and kind of starts committing, like, for a better word, crimes because she
Yeah.
thinks that she's helping, and to some people she is helping, but to other people it's like, it feels like you're
Yeah.
doing bad things even to bad people, and that doesn't necessarily cancel out. But I had so many readers, even after reading her perspective, were like, oh, I still don't like her, oh, I still don't like the choices she's
Yeah.
making. And I think that's so interesting and like so fun, because it's like, oh, even after seeing inside her own head, you can still disagree with
Mhm.
what she's doing, and I think you probably should. So that's great. Like, I love hearing that, but also hearing people say like, oh, I could understand why she was doing what she was doing. And
Yeah.
so there's kind of like, and then so even with like readers, you're going to have people who like agree or disagree with what a character is doing, and I think that that's so fun.
Yeah, and actually it's funny that you bring up that character from the second book because one of my other themes that I see a lot in your books is the broken beliefs theme. And you
Yes.
do see it a lot with that character that you're talking about, which I'm like, that's the character.
Mhm.
But yeah, so you do see it a lot, and I do love that sort of theme of like of you see it with so many characters, and I'm like, how do I word it without spoiling anything? But yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
see it a lot.
Like one person is like thinks that they're doing heroic things, and the other one it's like you're literally being a villain. So it's just like it's just fun to like see what people think and see what other characters think about them, and just like I love that kind of conflict. It's just
It's a
fun
lot
to
of
read,
fun.
fun to write.
Yeah. Another theme I have two. Well, you have so many that I was like, I had to like break them
No,
down.
I love it. This is like I love getting deep.
It's just it's fun to see like different things kind of come across different characters and what how that evolves when it comes to different characters and how two different characters with the same information can do
Mhm.
completely different things. So I
Right.
love that. But one of the ones that you have is you that words have meaning and
Mhm.
power. And this I see in a lot of different ways. There's the very obvious way with magic, where certain words in magic can do
Mhm.
very specific things. And then you also see it a lot in people's beliefs and how the way that things are worded to be passed down to people that has meaning, that has power, that has the power to shape where civilization is going. So I
Mhm.
really enjoy that, like that theme that you brought on.
Yeah. No, I kind of, how do I put this? Like, I feel like that was a theme that kind of developed almost on its own because
Mhm.
people, I mean, you always hear that, like, oh, where's that power and stuff like that. But I love exploring that kind of in a more like subtle way, especially when it comes to magic. And I feel like I definitely like, I'll go into any book that I'm writing with kind of like an overall theme that I want the main character to
Mhm.
experience. Like usually that's what I have to like think about and plan out before I even start writing. But then it's so fun when something like a smaller theme comes up like more organically just
Yeah.
from that main theme. I don't know. It's getting like very technical writing and stuff. Just like I don't know. But
Yeah.
I was really just wanting to explore the theme of power and words, especially with magic. And that comes up more in the second one. But yeah, being basically kind of creates a new type of magic that is basically harnessed by words and that has never been done before in the like history of the fae, and it is a such a powerful type of magic that like it is basically the equivalent of any other type of magic in this world. So, meaning like this being and anyone who uses the language would have the same amount of power as the strongest being in their world,
Mhm.
as long as you know like how to say things and how to use it. So I just really liked kind of playing around with that and magic and like just the implications of like knowing that the stuff you say could like literally give you as much power as like the most powerful being in the world, but also like how they are telling stories and a lot of their both fae and human histories are like changed because they've been
Mhm.
passed down. People in power have changed the histories, and through talking and like meeting new characters, they're like piecing together their history and like what actually happened and stuff like that. So I think that's so interesting too, is like, you know, people in power also controlling words and
Yeah.
history and stuff like that. So yeah, so much like little mini themes in there, but
Yeah.
it was super fun and I really enjoy that. And oh, I forgot, like there's there's a scene kind of at the end of book 2, and one of the characters is like reading a book and it like really changes shifts her perspective on kind of
Yes.
what
Yeah.
she's doing and why
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
fighting and stuff like that. So yeah, like I think that that's again like you so many people experience that. You know, they read a book and it really changes them. It really changes
Yeah.
their perspective or gives them empathy, and I really wanted to include a small part of that because that's literally happened to me, happened to so many people I know. You know, it really can change how you feel about something, and I think that that's really a really cool thing that books have the power to do.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. It was one of my favorite themes because I saw it throughout, which is like words that were said or weren't said, and how powerful
Yeah.
that is with different
Yeah.
people and like history and all that. So I love that. And actually,
Mhm.
that gives me the perfect transition over
We're on the
to
same brainwave
the
right
yeah, I was like,
now.
the writing section. Woo! Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to divide this one into two parts. First, your writing personally, but then I want to also divide it into the publishing
Yeah.
because I do want to get into that. So first, real quick, with like your personal writing process, I want to know about your planning style because you have such a
Mhm.
very I mean, you have a very vivid world building process, and you have different characters with different backgrounds and their own different journeys. So I kind of want to know, how did you make sure to plan everything to make sure that you were
Yes.
connecting
I
everything?
I am like an obsessive planner to the point where it gets like procrastinating where it's like you're just like planning so much to
Yes.
get out of doing. But I I really don't like sitting down to write and just not like just feeling unsure. There's
Mhm.
always a part of that that comes with writing, but any way that I can like prevent that, I really try to. So when I'm planning, I always start out with the main character and just what they want, why they want it, and what's stopping them from getting it. And it sounds so simple, which is why I like it because it's like very digestible to do. You know, when you're
Mhm.
thinking about your main character or you have an idea for a main character, even if you just have one thing or one trait or one thing you know about them, it's very easy to expand that into just like, oh, well, like, what do they want? Oh, well, why would they want that? Or, oh, here's something that's stopping them from getting what they want. I just really like starting out with that because it just guides every action that they're going to do, you know?
Mhm.
So if I'm stuck on a scene, it's like, oh, well, would she say that to get what she wants? Yeah, probably. So that helps guide the story. And that's like the first step I like to take, very digestible, like I said, to because I like to start in really small pieces. So yeah, that's kind of like where I start. And then I do that for all of the characters. And I try to think about, you know, just what they want is going to guide like what they want versus what they need, and the need kind of gets to that like overarching theme, you know. So I talked about in the first book it's really self-confidence, self-love. So when I started the book I was like, okay, well, in the beginning she's obviously going to be not very confident, and at the end she's learning, or she has learned, that
Mhm.
she is worthy of love, that she, you know, is more confident, knows what she can do, that kind of stuff. But that's just what she needs. What she wants is to get her best friend back because her best friend was kind of like a crutch for her, almost like was like in Larkin's mind, she couldn't do anything without
Without,
her best
yeah.
friend. They had all these plans for the future. They kind of like worked together, did stuff together. And she thought that she couldn't really do anything without her friend. So she thought, oh, if I get my friend back, I'll be confident again. But that's not really what she needs. What she needs
Mhm.
is to figure it out by herself. So that's like a very overarching way of how to kind of get to the theme, and or how to like make your theme guide the choices and plot of your novel. So I start out like that
Yeah.
with all of them, every character.
Do you have like a you have like a very specific breakdown of each character, and then do you have more of like a loose idea of the plot and then like lead it with what you have with the characters, or
Yes.
are you equally, oh, is that, yes.
I feel like I'm definitely more character driven. So I like to
Yeah.
think about the characters first. And usually I'll have like just big things that I want to happen in the plot. And usually, like, oh, it's so hard to think about the writing process because like finishing it was so long ago. But really, I when I'm thinking about stuff I want to happen, it's usually just like things I want to happen. Like that
Mhm.
sounds so vague, but like when I'm watching a TV show or listening to music or reading another book and I'm like, "Oh, I love when like the found family is going into the battle and like someone has just died." Like, I
Mhm.
really like that. Then I'm like, okay, I want to add that to the
Mhm.
story. Or if I'm like, oh, I really want a scene where like the rivals have a big battle and like one of them gets hurt. Then I'm like, okay, like where can I put that? And I like to like let that, I'm trying to think of like how I connect it, but it's kind of
Yeah.
like I just have kind of like a list of things, like general scenes that have happened in shows, movies, or books.
Yeah.
You know, it's nothing that I made up. But
Mhm.
how do I fit that into like the unique plot that I've made, which is like the theme that goes with this specific character? So I try to use the character to make decisions and then have that guide to like the big goalposts of like, okay, I know I want a big battle at the end. Okay, I know I want like a scene where the like love interests are fighting and then they make up, like that kind of stuff, and kind of like put that along as like a little like roadmap
Yeah.
signpost, I guess. Yeah, it's like kind of weird to think about. Now that I'm like thinking about it, I'm like, I actually kind of don't know how I
That's
did that.
actually why this is my favorite question to ask writers, because every one of them is like, "Well, actually, I just
Yeah.
do this." And you're just like, "What?"
Yeah. No.
What do you
And
mean?
sometimes I think about that. Like even when I'm saying it, I'm like, wait, what? Like, and so often I'll like I'm writing the third one right now, and I'll be like writing, and then I'll kind of like get on a roll, and I'll be like, okay, and then I want, oh, and this backstory happened, and like this happened to him, and and I was like, oh my god, like I genuinely did not know that. Like I don't
Yeah,
know where it came from. Like it sometimes it just like,
the
is a
characters just
flow,
tell
and
you.
it's yeah, they're telling you sometimes.
Mhm.
And I think that that's really cool, and it's always going to like some part of it, no matter how much you plan, is going to surprise you. And I think that that's really cool and fun.
Yeah. And as far as the planning goes, when in these books you have, like we were talking earlier, there's limitations to the magic, there's the
Mhm.
good and the bad with the magic. Is that something that you planned as well, or as you were writing it, you were just thinking like this needs to have this limitations, or like
Mhm.
this can't all be good, it has to be balanced out with the bad?
I feel like it's kind of both. I feel like when I went into writing the first one, I kind of had a general idea of what I wanted the magic to do. Like I was like, oh, I definitely want elemental magic, but also kind of a twist where like
Mhm.
there's elemental magic with the quartz, but then they have kind of like a secondary power that is like kind of more hidden. So I knew I wanted that. But then when I really got into kind of the like nitty gritty of writing, I was like, oh, okay, like you never want anything in your book to be too easy. So I feel
Yeah,
like the easiest way when you're like having beings that can use magic and do things so easily, especially like when it comes to fighting, then you always want something to check that, to make sure that there's conflict, or else the reader is just going to know that they can win every battle, that they
yeah,
can do anything in any situation on the quest, and then that makes it not fun for them. But if they know, oh, like they can only do this, or they can only use magic in this area or for this long or something.
hmm,
So I feel like that comes more when you're writing, because
hmm,
that's going to come up more when you're adding conflict, which you might not know what kind of conflict you need until you're in the weeds of the story, if that
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah. No, I get what you're saying. Like it kind of like has to, as you're writing it, you kind of have to get the vibe of like, okay,
Yeah,
wait, hold on, like this is kind of how this is going.
right.
I and actually, speaking of battles and that kind of stuff with writing, this is YA,
Yes.
but I gotta say that there are some things that happen or hinted at that I'm like, that's that also could get very dark very quickly. And I want to know, writing wise, how do you make sure that something like a darker theme or a darker scene still stays YA?
Yeah. I think that's so interesting because, like, especially now that there's a more established genre of new adult, like,
Yeah.
new adult has always kind of existed, but I feel like it wasn't super acknowledged, especially by like publishing. It
Yeah,
was
I think
very
a lot
acknowledged
of
by readers.
authors were like forced to do
Yes.
YA when they really wanted
Yes.
to do
And
YA.
I heard of that several. I feel
Yeah.
like I even kind of did that because I kind of wanted more new adult, but like it, not that it wasn't a thing, because it always is before it
Yeah.
blows up, but I feel like at the time it was kind of more like pick adult or YA, because I was trying to go the route of traditional publishing. So I wanted
Yeah.
something that I could like fit very squarely in a genre. But when it comes to YA, like the line is so blurry. Like when it comes like
Probably.
I feel like YA, like the main thing is like you don't want explicit language,
Yeah.
explicit like activities like drugs, sex, that kind of stuff. And themes. You don't want stuff that's like super dark, but at the
Yeah.
same time, you have stuff like Hunger Games, that's very dark. And
Yeah.
that's, even if it's not said, even stuff that's you have to think about also what's not said, if that makes sense.
Yes,
So
yeah.
I feel like young adult is how do I say this? I really struggled with this because I knew the themes I wanted to write when I
Yeah.
went in, and honestly, like it's really dark. Like especially like looking back
Yes.
at it now, I was like
Yeah.
did not hold back. So like that it's so I would consider it definitely like upper YA. Like I
Yeah.
would not recommend this for like
Well, that's also the problem with YA is that the range of YA
so
is
big of a
so big. Like you
yeah,
have what like 12, 13-year-olds is
yeah,
considered YA all the way to like 17,
yeah.
18-year-olds. That's a big gap.
Yeah. So yes, actually, now that we're like talking about that, I think it's so, it's so hard because like I wanted to talk about things that were very dark. Like I have
Yeah.
a lot of kind of like an evil religion that's doing stuff. I have like literal sacrifices happening. I have
Yeah.
like gore and torture and all of this stuff that like everyone's like that's fine for YA as
Yeah.
long as there's no sex, but like it's still like
Yeah.
really
I
really
felt
dark.
as I was reading it, I was like, this author wants to dip her toe into new adults
It's
so
true. No,
bad.
yeah, and
Yeah,
that's so
like
true.
I could like feel it. Like
Yeah, and it's so hard because like so many people will be like, "Oh, is there like spice in it?" And I'm like, "No." And it's not because I have anything against spice or like that I don't want to write it. It's more just like I decided it was YA, so it's
yeah,
YA. But, then you have Sarah J. Maas who started out very YA with Throne of Glass, and then by book 3 it's like
yeah.
adult, new adult,
It's the same with her Akatar series.
Yeah,
Like people are like, it's so spicy. I was like, that spice doesn't come in
until yeah,
until way, way
yeah,
later. Like if that's what you're expecting, you're gonna be waiting
yeah.
a very long time.
So I think like it's definitely interesting, especially since like I work at a middle school now and I
Mhm.
see the stuff they're reading and it's like Colleen Hoover, it is
Not
Fourth
Colleen
Wing.
Hoover.
Yeah, yeah. It is Spice Town. And I'm like, oh, okay. So like I wrote these books
Yeah,
for teens and these kids
yeah,
are literally younger than my target age and they're still reading, which is like, I was reading
yeah.
stuff that, any genre when you're in middle school. But
I
I
totally get it. I accidentally read True Blood at like 14. Why was
yeah,
I
yeah.
reading True Blood at like 14?
So I think like with the darkness level, because it
Mm,
is really dark, but I wanted to have like a lot of light moments in there. Like it's a
yeah,
very dark themed book, dark themes in the first one, second one will be in the third one, but I wanted to have moments where it's got a lot of light and hope to
yeah,
it and sweet moments and stuff like that and trying to show like okay like you might be going through a dark time but there is like hope, there is light at the end of the tunnel, that kind of thing. So yeah, it is really interesting. And now,
yeah.
like thinking back, I'm like, I really did want to make it new adult.
Mhm.
And I didn't. And now it's kind of like a weird, like, it's kind of like, because a lot of people are like, oh, does it have spice? And I'm like, I wish it did. Like, honestly, I wish it did. But like when it came out, it was so strictly young adult. And then
Yeah,
writing the third one, I'm like, okay, like, I guess I could write spice into the third one, but like then it kind of feels like well like what is it, and then it kind of
yeah,
becomes like oh the first couple books are young adult and then it's like would people even make it to the third one because if they don't like YA they're not going to like the first two, so it's really interesting thinking about like
yeah,
genre blending, that kind of stuff. But I think I'll probably keep it young adult, and the way that I kind of aged it up was through the darkness of themes.
Yeah.
which is just kind of,
Mhm.
it was a product of its time, I guess, and it just is what it is. But that is actually very interesting when you brought that up, because I kind of think about it and I'm like, oh, I wish I was writing it now, because I
Mhm.
think new adult would have been a really good fit for it. But I love it as YA. Like, it was a great way to start, because, like, my friends and family were reading it. Now
Yeah, I
I
always think
teach,
about that.
now I teach and the kids read it, and like
Mhm.
I do want to write adult and like new adult and like spicy stuff in the future. But honestly, it was kind of a great lead in for like my friends and family to kind of like drop off. Like, they're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, we read Autumn's Tithe, and now I'm like, okay, you're good. Stop
Don't
reading
get anything
now.
else.
Don't read the other ones. Yeah. So I feel like, but I also have so much love and loyalty for the young adult fantasy genre.
Yeah, we all
Like,
started there.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so at the same time, I feel like it does have kind of like a nostalgic feel, where like someone who likes new adult hopefully
Mhm.
will like the darkness level of it,
Yeah,
that it doesn't feel super young. And but like YA readers can still read it, or no spice readers can read it and still have that kind of like nostalgia, or Red Queen, early Throne of
yeah,
Glass, um Cruel Prince, that kind of stuff. So hopefully it's just kind of like, it's not going to be a crossover. I don't think I'm going to
mhm.
randomly change gears with the third one, but
Yeah,
it was just, kind of an ode to where I started reading, which
yeah.
was young
Why?
adult fantasy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say, like you said earlier, it's definitely upper. It's definitely upper YA. And I think that there's some fun little hints that you give, especially like your main character's thoughts on certain romantic
Yeah.
feelings.
Yeah.
That you're
It's
just like
like very
more,
so I'm like,
yeah,
no spice can sometimes like I think of Six of Crows. Six of Crows doesn't
yeah.
have spice, but the tension is so good. So I
It's yeah,
also like, I'm like, they're like, oh, no spice. I'm like, but there is romance. There is
yeah.
tension. She's thinking thoughts
He's
for
thinking
sure.
a lot of thoughts. For a second, I was like, I'm sorry, is this gonna give me like a complete switch and do like a why choose all of a sudden?
Yeah.
Because her thoughts were like very everywhere. I
Yeah.
was like, girl, I see you. I
She
feel
has
you.
two. That's I was sometimes when I was like rereading, I was
Yeah,
rereading them to like work on the third one, and
yeah,
I was listening to the audiobook, and I was like, "Oh my god, like I think that she just has like chemistry with everyone." Like
yes,
it was like I was looking back at old, and I was like, "Oh, are they really like friends?" She really just,
yeah.
and then
Like she was just like thinking thoughts about everyone
yeah,
there.
yep, and it's like, she gets to, like, this group of, like, fae
Yeah,
men, and she's having thought, like, and it's not like that, but, like,
yeah. But
there's
for a
thought.
second, I was like, is this? Did I get it wrong? Is this not YA?
Yeah, but then I, like, think back, like, when I was writing it, I did not realize it. I was just like,
Yeah,
"Oh, he's so handsome," and, like, that
yeah.
was just all I was thinking about, but looking back, I was like, "Oh god," like, I wrote it as she has chemistry with everyone, and
I
that's
mean,
just, like,
relatable, relatable. If you drop me off in the middle of nowhere with a bunch of hot fae
truly,
men,
yeah, I'd
I
be
mean,
like,
I would also be like,
why
guys,
choose right now? I
why
want to
choose?
play my options.
Like, there's plenty of me to share. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Okay, so on that fun note, I want to move over to your publishing real
Okay.
quick. So you already mentioned it, it's Counterpoise, and you I don't know if you said this earlier to me, if I read it or you said it already, so I'm gonna ask it again, which is the inspiration between starting your own publishing house.
Yes. So I talked a little bit about that I tried to get it traditionally published, and I couldn't get it published. And I decided to publish it myself, but I wanted to start my own publishing house. And when you like look into indie publishing or research about indie publishing, one of the big things is like, if you're self-published, you should start your own LLC publisher, and it
Oh
kind of
no, it froze.
oh, it's back. Is it back?
It's back.
Oh, it's
Okay.
back. Okay. Is it
It's back. It's
unfrozen
back. I was
now?
like, what?
Is it unfrozen now?
Yes,
Can you
yes,
guys hear
yes.
me?
You're unfrozen now.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, good.
Oh,
That was a fluke. That was a fluke. Don't even worry about it.
we're not gonna. Yep. Nope. But I okay. Wait. Where did it cut off?
That when you're researching indie publishing houses or
Okay.
indie publishing, yes.
Okay. So, there's just a lot of judgment in the industry for self-publishing. So a lot of people recommend starting your own publishing house to put on the book. So when the average person who's not going to do any digging picks it up, they
I can't tell that it's like,
don't know that it's not published from a publisher.
mm-hmm.
So, and that sounds like bad. Obviously, self-publishing has taken off so much, especially
Yeah.
with like TikTok and stuff like that. Readers have seriously come through for authors, come through for me, which
Yes.
is amazing. But just people in the industry, I feel like will definitely just shut a door in your face if they know it's self-published. So anyway, that's why I started it, was to like publish my own books under, to essentially make them look like they weren't self-published. But
Mm-hmm.
I was also, in the back of my mind, I'd always loved book publishing. I like really loved the process of self-publishing. I was going to college for English, and I did two publishing, like book publishing internships. And I was like, you know what? I like don't like a lot of the aspects of traditional publishing, and I don't like a lot of the aspects of self-publishing. And I wish there was kind of something in the
Oh
middle
no,
that
I
was
lost you
kind of
again.
combining
Oh, you're
parts
back.
of both of them. Wait, did it freeze?
Yes, hold on, and you're giving me like little pixelated vibes for a hot second. Hold on.
No! Okay,
Hold on.
let's just
Okay,
wait.
okay,
Where'd it go?
and okay, you're back. You're back.
Okay,
You the
where did
last I
it
heard,
go?
yeah. So the last I heard was that you didn't like a lot of aspects of
Okay,
traditional
okay,
publishing.
okay. So I wanted something that was kind of like more in the middle, that was combining parts of both. Like I really liked how professional traditional publishing was, and not that
Mhm.
self-publishing isn't professional, but there's like very high quality standards when it comes to traditional publishing, because just so many people and businesses are working on it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to take that and blend it with like the freedom and control of self-publishing, because self-publishing, you know, you're choosing literally everything that
Mhm.
happens, and I really liked that. But I knew an author who maybe was like didn't want to self-publish because they didn't want to do everything. Oh no, my gut is telling me
Oh
it
no.
froze. My gut is telling me
Yeah.
it was like my gut is telling me that it's frozen. I need to we were doing so good.
It like literally was like you guys are speaking too much.
I
I'm
know.
like,
It's like stop.
okay, okay. So you said that you know that an author that normally would want to do. Oh God, no! I just
No,
forgot your phrasing. What the
no,
completely?
no. Oh, okay, okay. I remember. Like if an author isn't comfortable doing everything themselves.
Yes,
Okay, okay,
that's what. Yes, yes.
okay. So if an author was like too overwhelmed with doing everything that like comes along with self-publishing, where you're doing literally everything yourself,
Yeah.
but they didn't want to, or they how do I put this, like they didn't want to do everything themselves, but wanted like some control, but
Yeah.
also liked the professionalism of traditional
Kind of like a
publishing.
hybrid.
Yeah, but didn't
Mhm,
want to like just sell their book and
mhm,
have no say at all, which
mhm.
is what happens to a lot of like mid-list authors, is kind of like, you know, they sell it, but then they don't get a lot of control over what's happening. So basically, I wanted to kind of combine those.
Yeah.
And I opened submissions and took on two authors' books, Scythe and Pin and Sparks Fly. They are perfect. Love them. And it was just such a great experience. And so I Counterpoise is a small traditional publisher. So I still call it a traditional house because even though it is blending parts of both of them, the main aspect I'm drawing from on self-publishing is control. So I really like to talk to the
Yeah.
authors about their editor, about their cover. And that's not to say that like you never get any say with a big publisher, but it's just like not a guarantee. And
Yeah.
with me, it is because I really want them to be involved. So I give them an advance, pay them for their book, and then we split royalties, which is like how we both make money. Like I
Mhm.
make royalty or make money from my split, and they make royalties off of theirs. So it still follows the traditional model. They don't have to pay anything. I
Mhm.
pay for editors, cover, stuff like that, but they just really get more of a say. And I see it
Yeah.
as more of like a partnership. Like I really want their input on everything. I don't want to just buy their book and do whatever I want with it because
Yeah.
traditional publishers are running off of like they do know a lot about the industry, which is true. They have a lot of contacts, they know a lot of stuff. But I really want the authors to like get to the end and like their book cover, like
Yeah.
the editor that they chose. So anyway, that's kind of a spiel on Counterpoise.
Yeah.
It's going great. I love it. Would love to get a little bigger so it's not just
Yeah.
me running it. Very tired, but it's
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
going great so far.
Yeah. Honestly, so two things that were going through my head when you were speaking.
As I was
One is one
yapping
is
for
that
like 10
you
minutes.
what? No. Great spiel. I love the fact that you're talking about it. But one of them is that you did describe Counterpoise as like Hannah Montana, best of
Oh, best of
both
both. Yeah.
worlds. So like the whole time as you were saying it, I was like, best of both
Yeah.
worlds.
Yeah.
um,
Well, and it's hard because there's just so many scammy publishers out there that are like asking you to pay them and stuff. And honestly, a small press, even like with me, is not going to be right for everyone. Some people are going to be like, you know what, I don't want to split the royalties.
yeah,
I'm just going to do everything myself with self-publishing, and that's totally fine. Or like, oh, I want, the resources, the advance, stuff like that of a big house. And again, that's like totally fine. But I
Mhm.
know it has really resonated with a lot of people and my authors and stuff that it just really like works for them. So again, like do your
Yeah,
research. That's what I like to tell people is like, it's not going to work for everyone. And all of those avenues, small presses like Counterpoise, big houses, self-publishing, it's all going to have pros and cons, and you just got to
yeah,
figure out what's going to work for you.
yeah. Which one is best? And I do think going back to that conversation about how social media has sort of changed. I think that it's sort of highlighted different holes that we've had in traditional publishing for a very long time.
Yes.
And like you said, traditional publishing is fantastic for a lot of different reasons. But I do like how people are also now looking at options. Before it was traditional publishing was it, and
Yes.
indie publishing, like you said, was kind of looked down upon, like, oh, you are not good enough to
Yeah.
be
Yeah. No,
you
it's
know
like you didn't make
traditionally
it
published.
because you
Yeah,
didn't.
you didn't make it. Like you're literally like you're just funding a hobby at this point. It's
Yes.
kind of how it was like looked. It was like one step above fan fiction,
No,
which
true.
I
Yeah.
love fan
Totally.
fiction,
Yeah.
so I don't even like but that's how it was seen for a very, very, very long time. And I do think that social media has opened up for the things that traditional publishing is good at and what
Yes.
it's lacking as well, but also the pros and cons of indie and hybrid and like big publishing house, small publishing houses. So like there is, I think, and I want to know your opinion on this, that the publishing industry is like a weird but very fun sort of space where things are needing to change and they're kind of
Yes.
changing.
I would 100% agree with that. And I think that, like, especially with the rise of book talk, and I joined book talk and TikTok at like the perfect time. Like, I
Yeah,
could not have joined at a better time because it was kind of when like not everyone was on it, but like post COVID, a lot of readers were on it. And
Yeah.
so that's like how I kind of got my start, was through TikTok, and a lot of readers found me through that. And I kind of talked about, like, I had not a single, obviously, like, people probably thought this and didn't say it, but so many readers were like, I do not care if it's self-published, like it has stuff that I liked.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
that was like, they didn't even ask. Like, when I would post about it, they weren't like, hey, like, who's your publisher? Because like,
Yeah.
readers don't care. I've really
Mhm.
experienced that. Like, if a book is like a good product, well edited, has a good cover, even if it doesn't have a good cover, if it has a good inside, like, readers
Yeah.
are so supportive. And like, I've really experienced that, like, I like, readers are really making a difference that, like, a lot of publishing has not quite caught up on. Like, I feel like publishing will be like, oh, Faye are done. That's what I heard a lot
Yeah.
of people say. Like, Faye are over.
Mhm.
You're too
Which is
late.
sad 'cause I'm writing a Faye story, so I'm like, "Wait, hold on."
No, like, and that's what I was told, and I was like,
Mhm.
like, Akatar just came out. Like,
Yeah.
okay. But, they were like, oh, well, Sarah J. Maas just came out with something, so readers will be tired of it after this. And I just think that that's like so untrue. Like, when something really popular and good comes out, they want more of like similar vibes.
Yeah.
So I think publishing was kind of trying to like not oversaturate stuff,
Mhm.
and was trying to say like, oh, we're taking a break from vampires, we're taking a break from fae, because readers are going to get tired of it, when readers were really like, no, like, let us
Yeah.
decide what we want to read. And I thought that that was amazing and so powerful, and blew up
Yeah.
so many deserving books and authors. And I just think that that's really cool. Like, traditional
Yeah.
and self-published, like, readers really just decided like, hey, if the book is good,
Yeah.
we love
And
it.
every reader is looking for something different
True.
anyway. So I think that is what I love about social media, and part of the reason why I really wanted to go ahead and do this show and stuff was because um now, instead of being like, okay, what's at the top of the most popular books or whatever, people are
Yeah.
just like, if you come across a social media video, somebody advertising a book and they has all the tropes that you like, you're just like, I'm gonna give it a
Yeah.
try, and it doesn't matter, they don't care
Right.
like
I've
how
never
it's.
had anyone be like, "Hey, who's your publisher?" Like, it literally
Yeah.
so I don't
Yeah.
know. I really like that readers, like, are judgy of what's in the book, but not,
Yeah.
like, of where it came from, or, like,
Yeah,
who
and
you
if
are,
it's
or
like vampire or fae or back to like the angels, back when we were like all reading
no,
angel
it
books,
never
or
gets
like
old. No, angels
never,
always hit.
first of all, let me just say that my first Shadow Daddy was an angel book.
Yeah,
So like
I think
you
mine
know,
was too, actually.
was
What,
it Hush
Hush
Hush?
Hush?
Ah! I have it. Oh god,
Yeah, I
somewhere.
was like, with the
To
Hush Hush, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
To this day, one day I will write a Shadow Daddy story, and when people are like, "Oh, you're just trying to write Akatar or Fourth Wing," I'll be like, "No,
I'm
no,
trying
no.
to write Hush Hush.
I'm trying to write Hush Hush." Like, calm down. Like, but yes, I think that like that is the best part about it, is that people it doesn't have to be like a trend. Like, I'll
Right.
go back and read vampire stories. I'll read like the new stuff. I'll read like whatever, because it's like kind of the stories that I want to hear
Yes.
right now, regardless of what the magical creature is. Is
Right, right.
sorry.
Yeah,
um
yeah.
oh god, sorry. I just got
Oh, no.
okay. I was like, what is I think it was the tag. Okay. Okay. And one of the last questions I want to ask you about your specific the publishing house, and then we move on to really quick fun stuff, because this kind of
Yay!
got out of
No,
hand.
I love it. We've been yes.
Sorry. I was like, don't worry, babe, it's gonna be like an hour.
We've been
um
talking.
is just in general, like you said you wanted to expand, so how would people even go ahead and apply or find you
Yeah.
or anything?
Yes. So my submissions are closed right now. They will be open soon. I just needed a little break after my surgery. But so I have a list of like things I like, genres that I'm accepting, that are on the Counterpoise website. So if you just search counterpoisepress.com, You can check out the website, see if you like anything, and if anything on the like submission or manuscript wish list kind of fits the vibe of your book. Because I right now I'm like definitely open to getting into other genres in the future, but right now I kind of have like genres that I kind of want to stick to right now because that's just kind of my specialty
Yeah.
as a reader, as a writer, that kind of stuff. So, especially fantasy, if you have fantasy, young adult, new adult, adult, pretty much anything in that genre, definitely looking for it. But we have a list of everything on there on the website. So, if you go to submissions and you check it out, it'll have like a, I'm like getting so granular, but there's like a way to write a query letter. So if you don't know what a query letter is, it's basically like a pitch to an agent or a publisher that just basically says like what your book is about. So you can look at how to write a query, write one for your book, and then submit it. So I have like an email that'll be there once submissions are open. You just email me, and then if it's a good fit, I will send you a contract to basically like buy the right to publish your book. You'll get in advance, and then we'll publish it. And that's the kind of shortened version of
Yeah.
what happens. But
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
that's like the way that you would like get in contact with your manuscript. So
no.
yeah. Oh,
And
and
I
if you
feel
follow me or Counterpoise on social media, we'll let you know when submissions will be back open, and they'll be back open soon. I just needed a little
right.
rest for a minute.
I get it. I get that wisdom teeth.
Yeah, yeah, so
It's
bad.
tough. Tough. I told you earlier that I for like 3 weeks I was walking around like a chipmunk when
I
I
didn't even
got
have
mine
like
off.
I don't think I swelled like literally at all, but it
Yeah.
was just so much pain. I think it
Oh.
had to be dry socket because I don't know how it could be this bad.
Yeah,
Uh,
because you were telling me about it, and I was like, I
I
had
couldn't
all
even
4
like
of them removed.
at first when I was talking, I would like talk like this because my jaw was
Yeah.
just like closed. So yeah, it was not fun, not fun.
Yeah. When I had mine done, I didn't think I had swollen up, but right, like maybe a couple of days after, like that same week or something, I did the whole Bridgerton experience thing.
Oh,
Yeah,
fun!
I loved it. Dress up. It was really cute. I almost won Diamond of the Season.
Oh, that would have been. I would have never
I know. I was like, ah. But I look back at the pictures and I'm like, oh man,
yeah,
I didn't think I had swollen up, but like you could literally see. I was like, oh
chipmunk
god, that's not how
blindness
my
with
face
that.
looks at all. Like I was like, it's like super disappointing because I'm like, gosh dang it, I look so beautiful dressed, and then my face
Yeah.
just like not good. Um, okay, so I want to move on to like just fun little
Yes.
funness. Oh, I did want to actually talk about something that you do in one of your books,
Okay.
actually in both of your books, which is that you have a handy pronunciation guide and
Oh,
map. Yes, and I want
oh,
to know like what that was definitely inspired by like the fact that fantasy sometimes makes no sense.
yes. And I never see a pronunciation guide. I think the first time I saw it was Akatar. Like Akatar had one, I think
Mm,
at least for the maybe not her like most recent ones,
I
but
don't
the first
remember.
like Akatar through Aqua War definitely had one in the back. And I just loved that because like especially when you're going beyond like even kind of like a language set. Like I have a lot of words that are kind of like loosely based in like uh not in Gallic.
Oh yeah,
Um
yeah.
so I have or wait, now I'm getting them confused. I think Gallic is the Scottish version and
Yeah, so like
Gaelic
well,
is
okay.
Irish.
Oh yeah.
I think because yeah, Gallic is okay. Sorry guys.
Yeah.
I have a lot of like Gaelic kind of based words, but
Mhm.
when you kind of get past that and you're just like, then I have some that I've just like completely made up that I just like
Yeah,
mashed together. Then it's like, okay, you need a pronunciation guide. And also,
yeah.
I like it just for kind of like weird or character names and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
I just really like it, and I think all books should have them. I think it should be
Yeah, I agree. It
required.
kind of reminded me of like I don't know if you ever heard the story of like how people didn't know how to pronounce Hermione's name in Harry
Oh
Potter.
yeah,
Which is why I just hit the
me.
mic.
Yep.
Which is why I was reading. First of all, I didn't speak English when I started reading the Harry Potter books. So I was reading them in English, but I didn't know English. I had a dictionary right next to me.
Oh
So
god.
I was just like, and in Spanish it's Hermione. So like completely different. So
Yeah.
it wasn't until Victor Crumb was like learning how to say her name and
Right.
you had to put that in, but that's book 4.
Yeah.
So, like
And I like it. Like sometimes there'll be like sometimes a character will like another character will like kind of looks like they're sounding it out, which is really helpful. But I'm like,
yeah,
no, I need to be able to reference that. I need to be able to
yeah.
look. I need to be able to look back on that.
Especially with fantasy,
Yeah,
it's so like yeah, yeah,
that should be
agreed.
required. I think book
Maps,
maps and book recaps. I've only seen this in like a
yes,
couple fantasy
yes.
books, but I put
Mhm.
it in my second book because I like then you don't have to like go back and
Yes,
reread or look like my books don't have a synopsis anywhere. So like
yeah.
you just have to remember it. So that I was
No,
like, yeah, it needs
especially with
yeah,
fantasy because they take so long for the
yeah,
next one, as it should, because fantasy
yes,
should take long. But like it takes so long and there's a lot of little minute details that you're just like, wait, what?
yeah,
Like what was that? So unless you happen to read it back to back, you're like, no, I have no idea what the heck. I
yeah.
don't remember anything. I did like that you did that.
No,
Um
when I was writing the second one, I like had literally after like everything in the beginning that like referenced something that happened in the first one, I would like explain it. And my
yeah.
editor was like, you need to take that out. Like, just assume your reader knows. And I'm like, I barely remember and I
Yeah,
wrote
this is
it. Like, I need
me.
more explanation.
Yeah. This is I'm actually writing it so I remember.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I need help. So
yeah. We kind of touched on the accent on this earlier, but because we were talking about your book and how there was like spice, but not smut because
Mhm.
it's YA. But I do kind of want to talk about it because you were mentioning that people were asking you a lot about like, is there spice? Is there spice?
Yes.
And just like the rise of basically like spice and smut and all of that in the industry. And if you mentioned that you're seeing it with your own books as well.
Yeah, I have nothing against spice. Like I really like it. I talk about this with one of my like really good friends who reads a lot of the same stuff I do, but we talk about this all the time and it's like we have nothing against spice at all.
Mhm.
But I also think that there is just kind of like a craze right now, which I
Yeah,
think is good and bad because I'm glad that people are finding what they want to read and that like romance, especially when it was so shamed, women were so shamed
so
in the
shame.
past
Yes.
for
Hmm.
reading it. So I'm so glad that now like everyone is taking it seriously.
Hmm.
Everyone like as like, you know, something that people want to read and people are finding what they like and stuff. And it's just fun. You know, sometimes it's just like really
Yeah.
fun. But I also think that it's really hard for authors who don't write that to find a readership. I
Mm-hmm.
think that those readers are definitely out there, but like the spice craze is so much. And like if your book doesn't have spice, I've seen so many people just like turn it away because like mine doesn't have it, and then my other author, one of my other author's books doesn't have it, but then the other one does. So I have like one book that has that I published that has spice versus like my two other ones that don't. But
Hmm.
it's really hard to find a readership for that because I feel like so many people now, if it doesn't have spice, they're just not interested. And I feel like that's so interesting because I also like, yes, it's good to know what you like. Like, I think that that's great. But I think of kind of like the height of YA, which was like Hunger Games, Twilight into kind of like
Divergent.
yeah, then Divergent, and then like
Yeah.
kind of up to Six of Crows, Red Queen, all of
Red Queen for
those
sure. Yeah.
YA. None of those have spice. And
Yeah.
those were like the mega hitters, and
Yeah.
everyone was talking about them. And now I have not seen a book blow up in several years that doesn't have spice. And I find that very interesting. And so it's just like something that's happening right now. I kind of like, I don't think that there's like a right or wrong way to go about it. I mean, I personally think it's great. I think that like readers are really liking it. They're finding, books that they like, coming back to reading or discovering reading, but it does really suck for
Yeah.
writers that don't have that in their books, because I feel like it's really hard to find a readership
Yeah.
because so many of the people who find it like are expecting spice and want it, and then they won't even read it if it doesn't, which is fine. I mean, if you know that you're not going to like it if it doesn't have spice, then don't read it, because
Yeah.
you're not going to
Yeah.
like it. But it is just really interesting, and I wish it was a little bit easier to like find
Yeah.
readers that aren't interested in or are willing to read it if it doesn't,
Yeah.
you know?
I think also, and I do wonder, I have wondered about this a lot. I have several theories, but like I do think part of it is because new adult, like we talked about earlier, has been around.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really, it was maybe a thing in like contemporary romance, but not
Right.
really
Yeah,
a
like
thing.
college romance kind
Yeah,
of.
like college age romance, but not like an Elle Kennedy type of
Yeah,
vibe book, but not really like a fantasy.
true. Yeah.
Like fantasy was one or the other. Either you were YA or you were way over like the
Yeah, like
True Blood
Game
vibe.
of
Like you
Thrones.
were
Yeah.
like, yeah, Game of Thrones. Like you were not. There was really no in between. And I wonder if part of the craze is that like yes, there is a new adult genre, but it hasn't been fully established in the as like a market of like
Yeah.
you're marketing this as new adult, and so I wonder if what it is that people don't really know, like YA book that has fantasy, and it's like that means the definition of that is this.
Mhm.
This is a new adult with fantasy. That definition, it doesn't necessarily mean that it'll have spice, but it'll be a
Right.
little bit more adult.
Yeah.
And I wonder if part of it is just that advertising for what the different genres and different, where a book fits hasn't been like reestablished.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know?
I think it's so I just think it's so interesting when you're
Yeah,
talking about like trends and stuff, because I think like I just think it's so interesting, especially from a publishing and reader perspective, just like what blows up, and like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
what blows up because it had a publisher behind it, and what blew up with a publisher that wasn't pushing it, or what blew
Mhm.
up because it was self-published. Like it's just so interesting. But
Yeah.
yeah, the spice just like craze, especially since it's so new. Like definitely like
So new.
has people have always liked romance, but like
But
having
it was
just
very Shane. My
it's
mom used to read
yeah,
the historical romance, think Fabio
yeah.
and the cover or whatever. And yeah, that was those books, first of all, were always cheaper.
Mhm.
They were always smaller.
That's true too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were always very like just like, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Like they just weren't the ones that were being they weren't even really advertised.
Mm-mm.
Like they never really made it on top of like a New York Times best.
Right.
I just knocked over something.
Oh
They just never
no.
remained on top of like a New York Times best-selling. Like it was
Right.
very, and now it's like, nah, bro, it's
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah. And I think that that's so good. Like I'm always
Yeah,
happy when like anything new happens in publishing, because honestly that's great. But
yeah,
yeah, it's just like kind of an interesting, like I've literally thought about like putting spice into my books to make it like, more appealing to the masses, or like, should I switch to the other book I'm writing that does have spice in it, that was like I always wanted it to have spice. Like I didn't
yeah,
add it because it's like popular. But then this series, I'm like, I have literally considered adding it because it is so popular. So it's so
yeah.
interesting. Like, I don't know, seeing that kind of like I said, like the 2010s YA that didn't have any spice, and
Mhm.
how big those things got. But then like the shift, and like, I don't know. I'm curious to see like
Where it
where
goes.
where it goes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's just, I don't know. It's very interesting to think about. And again, I don't think there's like anything that can be done either way. Like writers who don't write spice, shouldn't put it in their books
No,
if they
there's
don't
a
want
time
to.
and place. A YA book should never like. I
Right.
think the spice, kind of like how you did it, and you see it in like Red Queen, you see it in Throne of Glass, you see it in all these. There is spice.
But
It's
not
very
smut.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's very hinted at,
Yeah.
but it and that should be as far as like
Yeah.
YA goes. So
Yeah.
I the whole idea of asking YA authors, is there smut? It's like, no,
It's for teens. Yeah.
it's for
Yeah. So it's
teenagers.
so
What?
interesting. Yeah. But it's like, I was so like, it's just hard because you see this like craze and you're like, oh God, like I need to do it because it's hard to find readers right now who like
Don't.
will
Yeah.
read something that doesn't have it that I'm like, oh, like shit, I guess I should put it in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, but then the reality is like, no, you shouldn't. But it's just, yeah, I'm curious to see, within the next couple years what
No.
like where it goes, or if like readers who don't like spice will have their resurgence, or
Mhm.
just like readers who are willing to read something that doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Like
I've
I
seen I've seen it lately. I do like book skits on my social media and stuff like
Mhm.
that, and I did one about just like the face you make when you're reading in public and you're trying to not alert to the fact that you're reading smut.
Uh-huh.
And I had several comments of people being like, sometimes smut, like too much is spice is a thing and like stuff.
Yeah.
So I do think that there's like the group of people who are like, come, just like, I don't want that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I'm gonna go stalk the comments of that
Yeah,
book. Like I
do
have
it.
a book.
My people come to me.
Yeah.
um
Anytime I do
okay,
that,
so
people are like, ew, no.
no, I think like you
It's gotta
said,
be
I
subtle.
think there's a book for everyone.
Yeah.
There's everyone has their things that they want. Um so I think I think it just needs to the craze needs to have its moment and then it
Yes.
can kind of settle, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great
Hopefully.
way. That's a great
Yeah.
way of putting it.
Yeah. Okay, so the last two little questions that I'll do, it will be kind of quick, 1 minute, sort of like the kind of questions that I'll just like advertise type
Okay.
of thing, you
Okay.
know. So real quick, describe your book in tropes or your characters, book and tropes. And
Okay.
I'm gonna ask that question again because I just like tongue tied myself.
Okay. Okay.
Describe your books and characters in tropes.
Okay. I was trying to like think of tropes as you were like
Yeah.
saying that. I was like, oh God. Okay. Faye, hurt plus comfort. Um, rivals. I'll say rivals. Quest. Dysfunctional found family. How many should I have?
How
Is that
many?
enough? Okay.
Yeah.
Dragons in the second one. They're,
Uh-huh.
they're fire drakes, but there are dragons. I'm gonna count dragons as a
Yeah.
trope.
Yeah. And then just like fun trauma.
One
You
trauma,
know?
yeah.
That's
Trauma,
not,
but
that's not,
it's
yeah.
interesting.
Okay, and then the last one will be a this or that
Okay,
sort of question.
yeah.
Actually, I'm reading the first one right now, and it's hilarious.
Okay.
YA or NA?
Oh, reading right. Okay, writing right now because I'm working on the third one, YA, but reading NA. I've been on an NA kick for sure.
Yeah. Dual POV or just one POV?
Ooh, if it's a first book, what a single POV. If it's the second book, multiple POVs.
Okay. Do you bookmark or doggy ear?
Dog ear. Yep. One of my fatal flaws. Yeah.
Oh my god.
No bookmarks for me.
Oh my god.
Like, end interview. I'm done.
Breaking the spines or keeping it intact?
Breaking spine.
Oh, I knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah. I destroy them. Like literally, if my book is loved, it is visibly loved.
Oh my gosh. Okay, writing human character or a magical character?
Ooh, magical.
Magical. Dragon companion or shifter companion?
Ooh, dragon. Never gets old.
Mm-hmm. Autumn or winter?
Ooh, autumn. I used to say winter. Now seasonal depression gets me. I'm gonna go with fall.
Yeah, yeah. Spring or summer?
Spring.
Immortal but cruel,
Mm.
or mortal but no power?
Oh, oh, that's hard. Immortal but cruel. More interesting.
Hmm. Okay, being a writer or being an editor?
Ooh, writer.
um, let down your kingdom or
Mm.
betray your family?
Oh God. Let Down Kingdom. Let Down. That's a
Okay.
good one and
Yeah.
very, very hinty. Subtle.
Yeah, I was like, I felt
Yeah,
clever.
you felt good about that one. I loved it. I loved it.
Power of life or power of death?
Ooh, life.
Hmm. Glamour or elemental magic?
Ooh. Oh, that one's hard. I think
I think
elemental. I
elemental
think
magic has always been really cool.
yeah.
Oh,
That's
so
another like people are like, I hate elemental magic. It's just like
I
so overdone. I'm like, no, I like that one too.
no,
Especially
I
if
love
it's
elemental magic. Yeah, no, I'm obsessed with elemental magic. Can't take that away from me like at all. And honestly, the last question is just please let me know when the heck the third book comes out.
oh my gosh. Okay. I am dead set on it coming out next year. Fingers crossed. I'm so slow when it comes to writing, but as of right now, the plan is next year, probably like late next year. But
Okay, so late
that's what the plan
2025.
is.
Yeah. And are you working on anything else?
Yes.
Or yeah.
So I am working on a new adult. It's a sapphic with angels and demons. So I know we talked about angels,
Yeah.
circling back to that, but that is a new adult fantasy, but it's not in the same world. It's completely different. So yeah, I've been working on that too. Honestly, I would like that one to maybe come out before because I'm a little more done with that
Mm,
one. But
mhm.
we
Yeah.
shall see. I also want to get the third one out because I want this series to be finished and for people to be able to read it.
Yes, and have a nice little fancy
Little
cover.
trilogy, yeah, because everyone
Yeah,
thinks
to
it's a
complete, yeah.
duology because like the book one and two have been out for so long, and I'm like, that's so fair. But the third one is coming. I promise. I'm just slow.
No, it's great. I can't wait. I'll be excited to read it whenever it finally
Yay!
comes out. Yeah.
Yay! I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
we'll have to wait until the special edition.
Yeah, I was gonna
And
say,
I will
please,
send you
please make this
that.
happen. So I'll be real. I would love to be sent a book, but
Yes.
also
You're like,
magic.
I'll get you the special edition. I'll send you that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so that was it, Hannah.
Yay!
This is it, the episode of Nerd Tea. Thank you so much. It's been a very amazing conversation. It went over so much.
So fun though. The
It
best
went
time.
over.
And all these technical difficulties could not stop us from
No, no, we
our chat.
persevered. Yeah, like we really just like push forward.
Yeah, but we got it. We got it.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this conversation and check out Hannah Parker's books. And that was it.
Bye. Thank you.